The Great Hunger is not merely a disease, nor is it an army. It is a lingering wound upon the world, a festering malignancy left in the wake of Beelzebub's war against creation. It is a strain of the Black Grail virus that is not wielded as a tool of conquest by the Order of the Fly, but rather as a means of ensuring that the corruption endures, even in defeat. Where the armies of the Grail seek to march upon the living, the hunger seeks only to consume and multiply. The forces of the Black Grail taint the land itself. Where their influence takes root, all organic matter becomes a vector for further corruption, twisting and reshaping itself into a form pleasing to Beelzebub. Unlike the immediate, aggressive infections seen in the front lines of battle, the Great Hunger is subtle, taking hold in the ruined remains of abandoned towns, charnel grounds, and forgotten battlefields. It does not seek to conquer. Instead, it waits. It endures. Even if a region is reclaimed from the Grail's influence, the hunger can lurk beneath the surface for weeks, months, or even years, waiting for the moment when the corruption is no longer expected, no longer feared. It is then, when it is almost forgotten, that the Great Hunger will re-emerge, consume everything, even itself, until nothing is left. Nothing but a dormant remnant, waiting to rise and feast again. Within the disorderly ranks of the Great Hunger, the Great Maws are grotesque avatars of disease and gluttony, their bodies warped and swollen with fanged maws that constantly gnash and vomit forth virulence and affliction. Standing as a monstrous fusion of flesh and pestilence, they are riddled with tumors that pulse and ooze, their diseased forms exuding an aura of insatiable gluttony. Though they are capable of spreading the virus through touch and proximity, the Great Maws care little for propagation. Their overwhelming desire is not to infect, but to consume. Their ravenous appetite knows no bounds, and their victims, be they friend or foe, are devoured with horrifying abandon. Among the Great Maws, there exists a singular, horrifying ambition: to consume one another. In their fevered minds, such cannibalism is not an act of betrayal, but a sacrament. They believe that by devouring another Lord of Tumors from another hegemon, they can absorb the victim's strength and refine their strain of the Great Hunger into something even more virulent. This nightmarish practice ensures that these creatures are always locked in a grim cycle of predation, stalking not only their enemies, but each other. Their internal rivalries are ferocious, marked by fierce battles of gluttony where the victor feasts on the remains of the defeated, adding their mass and potency to their own ever-mutating form. Though gluttony consumes their thoughts, a Great Maw remains a potent part of the hegemon's forces. They serve as icons of terror, their monstrous appetites inspiring both fear and reverence among the afflicted. On the battlefield, their primary strategy is simply to feed. They wade into combat, crushing foes beneath their bulk or tearing them apart with massive weapons, consuming everything and everyone in their path. To face a Great Maw is to confront the grotesque truth of their hegemon's creed. The Great Hunger is endless, and all who stand against it will be consumed. The hunger is no mere affliction. It is a profane blasphemy, born from the darkest reaches of Beelzebub's mind and midwifed by demonic contempt. In the aftermath of an outbreak of the Black Grail virus, Many feel as though they are now free of death's looming shadow, their return to normalcy celebrated as a triumph. Yet salvation proves to be a fragile illusion. Soon, an emptiness takes root, a hollow gnawing in their cores that grows day by day. At first, it is a quiet hunger, dismissed as a harmless after effect of the stress that they endured. But as it deepens, their appetites become monstrous. Unable to resist, they gorge on anything they can find. Beloved pets become the first casualties, their owners sobbing as they tear fur and bone apart in desperation. Then come the young, the soft, defenseless children whose cries do nothing to halt their doom. Before long, entire households are consumed, their homes reduced to abattoirs. The transformation is both spiritual and physical. The sores on their flesh split open, not as wounds, but as hungry, gaping maws lined with jagged, bone-white teeth. These grotesque orifices are not content to consume in silence. They speak. Between bites of raw flesh, they sing hymns in a language older than time, vile praises to the Lord of the Flies. The afflicted become unwilling prophets, their bodies corrupted vessels of insatiable hunger and obscene devotion. The fate of pregnant women afflicted is more abhorrent still, as Beelzebub has a special contempt for the process of creation. The trauma should end the fragile life within their wombs, but the hunger knows no natural law. The unborn endure, twisted yet alive. When the child is born, it does not wail with the innocence of new life. It speaks. These children, small, pallid and malformed, open their blood-slick mouths and beg their mothers to devour them whole. The mothers, long past sanity and writhing under the weight of their hunger, oblige with a terrible joy. This unholy act marks the beginning of something far worse. After consuming their own newborn, the mother enters a grotesque metamorphosis. Her bloated form sags and slackens, her hunger briefly sated, but only briefly. Within a single day, her belly begins to swell again, far faster and far larger than before. Her skin stretches thin, veins blackening beneath translucent flesh. By the 7th day, her body ruptured completely, splitting apart like rotting fruit left too long in the sun. From the ruin of her shredded form crawls fully grown horrors, malformed monsters with mouths, claws, and distended features, their eyes burning with an unnatural fire, and their breath fouled with the stench of decay. These creatures are the new children of Beelzebub, born of plague and blood. Yet the mother is not granted peace, her torment far from over. As a Matagot hag, she is now a wife to plague and misery. Her body, despite being torn asunder, begins to stitch itself back together, an obscene parody of regeneration driven by the hunger's will. Within a single day, her stomach swells once more, as something monstrous rides within her rotting womb. At the end of the week, she will split open once again, birthing another creature devoted to the Grail. This horrific cycle will repeat endlessly, each birth tearing away what little remains of her sanity until she becomes nothing but a living cradle of horrors. These creatures carry her about over their heads, protecting her at all costs. These newborns to the Grail do not stumble about. They rise with intent, their malformed frames whispering praises to the Lord of the Flies. They are no longer children in any human sense. They are his thralls, harbingers of ruin, their very breath a vector for the Black Grail virus. Each mewling, plague-ridden creature spreads the hunger further, an army birthed from agony and devotion. With Beelzebub's scheming at hand, the streets of civilization no longer echo with the cries of the living. They pulse with the fevered chants of the damned. The hunger had found its prophets, and beneath its insatiable appetite, the world begins its slow descent into oblivion. The Plague Knights of the Great Hunger are twisted parodies of their former selves. Once proud warriors, now wretched beings consumed by their devotion to Beelzebub and their insatiable hunger. Unlike the mindless thralls of the hegemon, these elite soldiers retain fragments of their intellect and martial skill, though their minds have now been wholly subjugated by the Great Hunger. They have submitted willingly to the virus, allowing it to transform them into instruments of gluttony and ruin. Their flesh, once strong and tempered, now bears the mark of their allegiance. Rotting faces stretched over angular bone, swollen limbs capable of tearing through steel, and grotesque maws where their voices once carried commands. Driven by an unrelenting need to consume, the Butcher Knights of the Great Hunger serve as hunters for the hegemon, scouring the world for flesh to sustain their grotesque masters. Each knight is a master of combat, their hunger fueling an unnatural ferocity, wielding weapons corroded by the black ichor that oozes from their bodies. They are as much disease as they are warrior. Their armor, pitted and warped by the Great Hunger's corruption, is etched with sigils and adorned with grisly trophies from their hunts. The battlefield is their banquet hall, and every skirmish serves only to fuel their grotesque appetites. Despite their insatiable hunger, the Plague Knights are not mindless beasts. They are cunning predators, driven by a singular purpose: to serve the hegemon by feeding its endless need. Each act of carnage is performed with twisted reverence, every kill dedicated to the Great Hunger. In their corrupted minds, their purpose is sacred, a grotesque act of devotion to the Lord of Flies. Their loyalty to the hegemon is absolute, but among themselves, rivalry festers. The strongest among them claim the choicest prey, and those who falter are swiftly devoured, their strength absorbed into the victors. Desiccated husks are the grim sentinels of the hegemon of the Great Hunger, lingering relics of a once human existence, now twisted into the living embodiment of gluttony and decay. These creatures, their emaciated forms wrapped in patchworks of crude armor, are tasked with protecting the elites of the hegemon, serving as their wardens. Their malnourished, elongated bodies appear barely capable of standing if not for the writhing parasitic worms that hold their body aloft. Their pallid flesh, stretched thin over sinewy muscle, bears the scars of countless battles, and their hollowed eyes reflect not loyalty, but an all-consuming hunger that drives their every action. Despite their wasted physique, Plague Wardens retain enough sentience to wield a variety of weapons with a savage precision. Whether carrying jagged blades, pitted shields, or rifles corroded by the plague, their armaments are as much tools of slaughter as they are extensions of their malformed bodies. They fight not for honor or faith, but for the sustenance that combat brings. Every skirmish is an opportunity to feast on the remnants of their enemies, the flesh they consume, fueling their unnatural endurance and keeping the Great Hunger at bay, if only for a time. Their armour, fashioned from rusted metal and bone, bears the grotesque iconography of Beelzebub, a reminder of their servitude to the Lord of the Flies. In battle, plague wardens are both protectors and predators, forming an unyielding wall around their hegemon's elites. They are ruthless in their defense, cutting down any who dare approach while ensuring that no morsel of flesh goes uneaten. Their loyalty is not born of devotion, it is survival. To fail in their duties means to be cast aside, left to the merciless appetites of their own kind. As protectors of the Great Hunger's hierarchy, they are both feared and envied by the masses of afflicted, embodying the grim fate that awaits all who surrender to the Hunger's relentless grip. The Grail thralls of the Great Hunger are grotesque remnants of humanity, twisted by the unrelenting curse of the Black Grail virus. These wretched creatures no longer care for the spread of the plague, consumed entirely by their insatiable need to feed. Their bodies are emaciated yet bloated in unnatural places, their torsos splitting open with each shuddering step, spilling entrails that drag along the ground. Their guts, dripping with black ichor, leave a slick trail in their wake. Where once there was human grace, there is now only the primal compulsion to devour anything in their path. Their faces are a nightmare given form. Eyes once windows to the soul rot and slough from their sockets, leaving empty, oozing cavities. Noses collapse into ragged holes, and what remains of their face is dominated by an impossibly wide, distended maw, crammed full of crooked yellow teeth. These horrid mouths chatter and gnash constantly, as if the hunger has taken over every fibre of their being. Despite the loss of their eyes and nose, the Grail thralls are guided by an unnervingly sharp sense of smell, capable of detecting living flesh from miles away. This cursed sensitivity makes them relentless hunters, shuffling forward on legs weighed down by their own dragging entrails, unerring in their pursuit of prey. In the trenches, the Grail thralls are horrific to behold. They stagger forward with horrifying persistence, their guttural moans and hisses reverberating like the echoes of hell itself. Their shambling, uncoordinated movements are deceptive, for when they draw close to their quarry, they lunge with feral speed, claws and teeth tearing through flesh as they satiate their boundless hunger. Their presence alone spreads dread, as those who witness them know there is no reasoning with such creatures. Grail thralls do not kill for sport or malice. They kill because the Great Hunger demands it, and in their cursed existence, the only relief is found in the flesh of the living. The fly thralls of the Great Hunger are vile abominations, their bodies transformed into living incubators for the parasitic flies birthed by the virus. These creatures are animated hives, their rotting flesh swollen with the larvae and bursting with life that thrives within their decay. From their shattered spines sprout insectile wings, wet and glistening with ichor as they tear through the ruined flesh of the host's back. These wings, membranous and veined like those of some monstrous fly, twitch and buzz ceaselessly, sending droplets of rot flying as they carry the thralls in erratic, lurching flight. The violent emergence of these wings is the final indignity to the host's corpse, ripping through bone and tissue in a spray of putrid fluids that leaves their once human forms barely recognizable. These wings grant the fly thralls a horrifying advantage, speed and mobility that defy their bloated, shambling appearance. They hover and bounce across the battlefields in jerking, unnatural patterns, their buzzing creating a deafening drone that overwhelms the senses. As they soar, their distended torsos hang open, spilling entrails writhing with infected maggots. The air around them is thick with insects, which spill forth from their ruptured bellies and crawl out from beneath their tattered skin. These flies spread like a living cloud, carrying the great hunger with them, and their larvae infest anything they touch, burrowing into flesh, soil, and even corpses, transforming the environment into a breeding ground for further corruption. When encountering these horrors, the very air becomes their weapon, the incessant buzzing of their wings drowning out screams as the swarming flies overwhelm their victims, crawling into eyes, ears, and mouths. Even in death, a fly thrall feels no reprieve. When one collapses, its wings beat in a final death spasm, sending sprays of ichor and disease in all directions, ensuring the spread of the Great Hunger continues. A Gregori Gula is a wretched parody of divinity, a towering gaunt abomination cursed with insatiable hunger. Born from the desecration of the dead, it is a pale, corpse-like creature, with its flesh stretched taut over an impossibly lean frame, except for where it hangs and sags like billowing sails. The seemingly endless hidden mouths beneath evidence of the grotesque nature of the Great Hunger feasting upon itself. They wear their own rotten flesh, less as tissue and muscle, and more as robes, a putrescent mockery of royalty and nobility. From its back unfurl great wings, made of twisted flesh and bone. They hint at divinity, but deeply rotted, as if the universe had never known the presence of God's light. Though whispered in reverence among Beelzebub's faithful, the Gregori Gula is a slave to its own wretched existence, its hollow body never full, its monstrous hunger a torment without end. The wings of a Gula are massive and terrible things. When unfurled, they carry not only the creature aloft, but also serve as a vector for disease. The dreaded Black Grail virus clings to them, spreading death and corruption wherever they pass. To be in their shadow is to know only fear and oblivion. Yet, for all their might and divine corruption, the Gula are slaves to their hunger. Their existence is driven by the ceaseless gnawing need to consume, and though they are revered among the damned, their craving is a torment they can never escape. Each life they devour, each soul reduced to flesh, only deepens the void within them, a cruel irony, for in their endless gluttony, they too are consumed.